Michigan, a black man lays in wait at a senior prom to unalive girl graduating, the white daughter of the white cop who killed his son a few years back. Scandal. Some of you might have heard this story. And hopefully by now you know it wasn't true. It was AI generated fake story. There's a lot of fake stories on the internet. What's the big deal? What's the meaning? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I was doing a lot of research on the weaponization of AI. And while this carefully crafted or seemingly carefully crafted narrative of racial revenge might seem like a prank of somebody, it's actually pretty well, it's done, you can tell, to engender hitting, hot button topics. Obviously, the white girl and the white cop are very white looking. The black man is very much, he's a dark-skinned black male. So you take the most extreme versions of these things to trigger people's brain. And I'm familiar with other racial fake stories that have been floated. I was going to do a story on this a few years back when I discovered myself. I was on Instagram or I was on Facebook maybe, and I saw a woman had reposted a story saying that there was a white serial killer in northern Ohio killing black women and no one was investigating, and it showed the name of a particular woman. And I looked her up, and she had been a victim of a homicide, but it was like a regular, I hate to say a murder is regular, but it was like a robbery. She was killed, and there were people arrested going on trial. And nowhere in any news story was there any mention, anyone even mentioned that there was a white serial killer in northern Ohio. It was not a real story. And I looked because she had pasted a screen grab into her social media post, and you could see the social media account that had originally posted it. And it was like one of those long strings, underscore 772, John Adams 84, whatever it was. That didn't look real, and the account had been deleted. And this was not long after it had come out that the Russians had interfered in the 2016 election. And I wouldn't be surprised if this Douglas Barnes fake Livonia, Michigan racial revenge story comes from Russia, because I just was reading about, I just read a big report done by an international agency on the fact that Russia has been found using large language models, LLMs. It's the technology at the heart of like ChatGPT. It takes in all the data and then it creates sentences like a human and does other things like a human. They're putting in real news stories and then giving the AI prompt parameters like, make it be about race or corruption, and it'll create a news story and it'll find photos. So I think that Douglas Barnes, the photo of that black guy, I think it's from, I don't know if it's from a stock footage or, there's been a website for some years called This Person Does Not Exist, where you can just create a picture of a human being that's an amalgam of billions of other pictures. So it looks exactly like a real human, but no one who looks exactly like that exists. And I think in the new Photoshop beta, you can actually do the same thing. Because if you use somebody's photo and said this was Douglas Barnes, then he would come out and say, hey, that's me. I didn't kill a cop's daughter at her senior prom. So that may not even be a person that exists. I'm not sure. So I did that story on the woman in Ohio. Why would Russia be doing this? To foment general chaos in the United States? Right now, just yesterday, Russian operatives dropped 5 coffins draped in a French flag right down the block from the Eiffel Tower. There's been multiple mysterious, like oil refineries, power grids going down in different countries across Western Europe or the EU. They haven't been able to definitively say Russia did it, but they think that it's looking like that. And there's a big project in Russia that's using these LLMs called Copycop. And it's either run, or one of the people running it is a guy named John Mark Dougan, who used to be a sheriff in West Palm Beach, Florida. And in 2016, he got in trouble. He was running a site called DC Weekly that was pumping out propaganda. This was a U.S. citizen. He was getting paid by Russia. He had to flee the United States. He's in Moscow now. And he I think the New York Times was asking him about stuff, and he kind of admitted it because he's safe in Russia. And we're going to talk about another guy who got paid by Russia in a minute. But Russia is working the internet. So that story was fake, and I suspect it came from Russia. And like I said, there was that Ohio woman story uncovered, which was eerily similar, a made-up story about white or black killing each other, and no one's doing anything about it, and revenge. It seems designed to capture the attention of some portion of the American population. Now, this John Mark Dougan owns 160 websites that pump out fake information. And another interesting example, I think about a year ago, maybe 6 months ago, a story came out from a supposed Middle Eastern journalist that he had tracked through the records and figured out that Zelensky, the president of the Ukraine, that his mother-in-law had just bought like a $20 million villa on the Red Sea next to Angelina Jolie. So this was meant to imply that the aid dollars that were given to the Ukraine is in fact being stolen and used to enrich Ukrainian politicians. This was at the time, still going on now, where I think they were pushing through the first aid or the second aid package to Ukraine. So they wanted to make it look like Ukraine is stealing the money. And in fact, this was a fake story, quickly debunked, because other journalists, they couldn't figure out who this journalist was that launched the story. And then they simply went to the villa itself and found the owner, who was, I think it was a part of a development, and it hadn't even been sold yet or something. And they were like, nobody's even bought this. And so the story got some legs. It got enough legs that it was referenced in the congressional debates by several U.S. congressmen as some type of proof that aid money was being diverted, which I'm sure it probably is, but you can't make up stories about it, right? So that story got some legs, and then it died out because it was quickly shown to be untrue. But then 4 months later, not too long ago, they reinvigorated it by saying that original journalist that launched the story about Ukraine president's mother-in-law buying a villa with stolen money from the U.S. foreign aid, that he had been beaten to death by who? Ukrainian secret police. Well, there's no evidence that this person even exists. And from the different journalists going through the articles and the websites, all these names that get referenced in it and the sources they use, these names don't appear anywhere else on the internet as existing. They're not on Facebook. They haven't written any articles. They only exist in these articles. So they're fake. Russia is launching lots of fake news at us to derail our aid to Ukraine, to foment general chaos. And I swear to God, some of you might remember when in George Floyd uprisings, or whatever you want to call it, the George riot, gym shoe thefts, I was riding around LA, Cavario, like when they were setting stuff on fire, and there were these white people that just didn't look, I don't know, the way they were dressed or acting. They weren't from LA, and yet they were the ones out on the street, and it was crazy. Like, if you really looked, they were telling people what to do. They were putting bricks in the hands of black homeless. Like, I saw this. Like, this happened. These were, and I'm, I don't come out here and do conspiracy theories, and, but I saw this. These were, I'm not saying they were Russian, they were somebody. They were provocateurs. And I don't know if you remember, there was a viral video around that time. Some black woman was driving, like in an inner city black neighborhood in some city, and she caught it on camera where this car full of, I think it was like 3 white people, and maybe it was a black guy, but definitely mostly white people. They hopped out, and they were trying to put bricks in the hands of like random, like black men that were milling around on the street, like, go break a window. And she recorded it. It was crazy. It's crazy. It was very non-organic. I mean, things like that riots have to happen. If a riot is happening, obviously some crazy stuff is going on and someone's hopping out of a car and putting something in someone's hands. But you would think it would be spontaneous. This was these odd people that didn't even seem like part of the environment just popping up and telling people to go attack something. White strangers telling random black people, here's a brick. Strange. And the girl that recorded it, sure, a woman, she chased off those people, like, what are you trying to get him in trouble for? But pretty wild. So back to the fake story about back to the fake. So there was that fake journalist. They made up the story about getting killed by the Ukrainian secret police. Okay, so now the manosphere comes into play, because that's a place ripe for misinformation. So there was a guy, I guess he was Chilean, and he got a little bit popular. He was known online as Coach Red Pill. So Coach Red Pill was involved in the Red Pill movement for a while. And then right before Russia invaded Ukraine, he kind of pivoted. Excuse me. Right before the Russia invaded Ukraine, he pivoted into talking about political stuff, and he was online saying, me and my kids are staying 40 miles from the Russian border. Russia's not going to invade. That's not what's going to go on. And he ended up being taken into custody. He went off the radar, and there was a rumor that came online that he had been unalived. But he popped up after a few days, and he said that Ukrainians had confiscated all his computers and this and that, and they wouldn't let him leave the country. And I guess somebody got a hold to the report from the Ukrainian intelligence. He had been taking photographs of, that's why he was 40 miles from the border. He had been taking photographs of the placement of Ukrainian troops and sending it to Russia. He was being paid. And the reason probably they used him, if you're a influencer, you got a YouTube channel, well, if you're out walking around taking photos or videoing stuff, you can just say, I'm outside taking videos, because that's how you do it. If you're going to send somebody, a video of, say, your local military base, well, I'm Al Prophet. I could go out there and I hold my phone up and I'm talking and I'm making an Al Prophet video, but in the background is the military base. So if I get caught, I am making a video. The military base is behind me? Yeah, I guess it is, officer. That's a national security violation? Sorry, I didn't know. So when you're doing the intelligence work, you want to create cutout points of plausible deniability. Is it suspicious? Al Prophet is recording outside? Not really, because he is a YouTuber. So same thing with this guy, though Coach Red Pill was nowhere near as big as the kid. I'm the kid, Al Prophet. But yeah, so Coach Red Pill is getting paid by the Russians. So he made a strange post saying, I have a heart disease and I'm going to be dead in 2 years. But he just didn't have much emotional affect when saying it. And he did get retaken into custody by the Ukrainians, and he died in custody. So he was awaiting surgery. So they have a story for it. So a lot of stuff going on. And I personally think that this Ukraine-Russia war, maybe the West is giving Ukraine just enough to fight off Russia to prolong this thing, so all sorts of new, maybe not so much military equipment, but new implementations of technology in the military space can be tested out. This is a great proving grounds. Rest assured, just like Halliburton and made all that money in Iraq, and I don't know about Afghanistan, but Iraq, there's tech companies lining up to sell military AI and weaponized AI for social media, like Russia is doing now. War is when fortunes are made.